And we're on. Hi, everybody. My name is Timothy Gager, and this is Virtual Fridays, Dire Literary Series. We do the pandemic better than everyone. So, see, now we have a buzz line. We've got a tagline. We do the pandemic in living color. So, my guest tonight is someone I've known for a long time, Mr. Nathan Graziano. And let me go here with Nate. So, here he is. And for you people at home where it says about me, this is about Nate. This isn't actually about me, all right?
Yeah.
So Nate's bio is kind of tongue in cheek about he teaches high school and he says he doesn't puff his chest out for being a writer. So when this is his website for you guys to check out up here, it's nathangraziano.com. So that's where we're going to go. And when we start talking about his accomplishments, we'll get to it during the interview. So Nate's going to read everyone. If you're tuning in on Facebook, thank you very much. And now I present to you Nathan Graziano.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. And thank you for having me. So I'm going to be reading from it's my new book. It's Fly Like the Seagull. Some people have called it magical realism. You know, I, I try to not get too hung up on titles. Um, so I'll just read two very short pieces. One of them is the first piece from the book because without this setup, you're not really going to have any good context for where the rest of the stories are going. So this is actually the setup. This is the I guess prologue. Um, and this is the story of the seagull, and it introduces you to who this character is. So it was a Tuesday afternoon and raining. The downpour that deposited a shallow, murky pond in the dirt parking lot outside the bar. Inside, Toby and I were splitting pitchers and trying to score a grim. Fox News was muted on the television behind the bar, a silence that soothed me as the ticker on the bottom of the screen scrolled through the headlines. A guy with a bald dome and inky black hair pulled into a tight ponytail walked in and sat on the stool beside Toby. He ordered a draft from Cindy and stared straight into the mirror behind the top shelf bottles. Caw, caw, Toby called like a bird. Startled, the man snapped his head to the side and stared at Toby, hard and unblinking. And as soon as Cindy finished pouring his beer, the man took his mug and moved to an empty table in the back beneath the lighted Budweiser sign. What was that all about? Asked Toby, waiting for a text. That's Jimmy Lucas, Toby said. I worked with him at the Northborough Times about 10 years ago. He had more hair then and this really weird obsession with Steven Seagal. The guy walked around the warehouse like he was on the set of Hard to Kill, doing these spin kicks and striking these strange karate poses. I got a text from a dealer, but he was picking up outside of Northborough and wouldn't be back for 2 hours. So what's with the bird call? I asked Toby. So Jimmy got a vanity plate for his car, and he wanted it to read Seagull. But this fucker couldn't spell his last name, so his license plate ended up spelling Seagull. So when he'd come into work, we'd make these bird calls and yell, "It's a seagull!" Jimmy got so fed up that he ended up quitting. I think he works at a supermarket now, in the seafood section. You imagine that? Seagull sells fish. You couldn't write that. You tell me, Toby said. You're the writer. Not lately, I said. I can't seem to get started on my next book. Then my phone buzzed and it was a different guy. Bingo. I turned to Toby. I can grab a gram, but we have to meet this dude at the mobile station 2 blocks away. It's pouring out. I don't mind getting wet, said Toby. I'll drive you. Like a ninja, the seagull approached from behind without us noticing him. Jimmy, you're my hero, Toby said. Call me the seagull. It's you, I said. You're the one I'm going to write a book about. You always knew, said the seagull, his keys dangling from his index finger. This was meant to happen. Namaste, Nate. Namaste, seagull. And the seagull was right. I always knew it was him. And this was meant to happen. So now Nate starts writing his books. Nate, who's probably kind of mostly sort of me. And he starts writing these stories about his characters. So here are some of the characters, and the seagull just seems to seep his way into all of these stories. The seagull, by the way, is he's a kung fu master, and he's a performance poet. So this is called The Sword the Selfie. Sean was crouched behind the bushes in front of his sister-in-law's apartment, holding a samurai sword and waiting for his estranged wife, Rochelle, to arrive home from her date. Wearing black jeans and a black tank top, his chest and arms and shoulders sculpted and bulging, Hulk-like, Sean was ready to attack. Earlier in the day, he worked his biceps and back for 2 hours at the gym, snapping selfies in the mirror. Nine selfies to be exact. With the blood pumping through his veins, his muscles stretching the fabric of his tank top. Sean forwarded the pictures to Rochelle, believing that no woman could resist a man so jacked and soaked in masculinity. But Rochelle did not respond to any of the 9 pictures, and Sean's friend Oliver, who Sean paid to spy on Rochelle, saw her earlier that morning at the Java Cafe, having coffee with a local performance poet. Sean had banked on the 9 muscle-bound selfies winning his wife back, who he lost after a brief and ill-advised fling with a stripper from the Dirty Bird, a club in a seedier section of downtown Northborough. When Rochelle found them naked together in the bedroom, Sean introduced the stripper as the new dog walker for Prince Albert, their Great Dane. Of course, Sean and Rochelle are fictional characters, although Sean is the real name of the guy I'm describing here, a guy who takes shirtless pictures of himself holding samurai swords in various phallic poses, a veritable Freudian feast. And according to Rochelle, Sean also sends her pictures of his limp dick. Sean must believe that the juxtaposition of his pumped muscles and flaccid penis, this is singularly my hypothesis now, produces a dizzying effect on Rochelle, sending her into a sexual frenzy where she would chomp glass to get at Sean's sculpted frame and arouse that tentative cock. Meanwhile, Sean waited in the bush with his samurai sword for Rochelle and that poet fag to arrive at his sister-in-law's apartment where Rochelle was temporarily living. Was Sean contemplating impaling the nascent lovers? Was he going to jump? Was he going to jump from the bush and block their path? The black tank top discarded and the top button of his jeans undone, and challenge the poet to a pose down? Or would he simply scream, "Bonsai, motherfuckers," and put a good scare in them? Sean was weighing his options when he spotted 2 shadows displayed on the sidewalk, holding hands. He remained crouched and clasped the sword, ready to spring into action. "I enjoyed dinner," the male voice said. "I like you, Rochelle." "I like you too, Seagull," she said. Sean then jumped in front of Rochelle, his tall and beautiful blonde wife, and a man with a bald dome and inky black hair pulled into a tight ponytail. Bonsai, motherfuckers! Sean screamed, swinging the samurai sword at the seagull. The seagull ducked and laid Sean out with a leaping roundhouse kick to the temple. He then took Rochelle's hand as they stood over Sean's hulking, unconscious body. My hero, said Rochelle, and kissed the seagull softly on his lips. Namaste, baby.
Thanks very much, Nathan. And if you have a chance to pick up his book, Fly Like a Seagull, here it is. And I'm really enjoying this book. So let me. Is there a person in real life that is the seagull? Because when I was reading it, I felt like I was kind of going in and out of reality. There's stuff, there was some vivid scenes like an open mic at the Java Cafe where I've done a reading at before. So all these things exist.
Are
So
you serious? There's really a Java Cafe?
yeah, it's on the Massachusetts New Hampshire border.
No kidding. I made that up. Maybe it's somewhere in my subconscious, but yeah, I'm sorry.
So does the seagull exist? Is there a person that?
No, no, and a lot of people have asked me about, who or what is the seagull. Some people have said, is the seagull actually just a manifestation of Nate? And this is metafiction, Nate's conscious, subconscious. Is the seagull some sort of a religious figure? Is he's, something? And my standard response to that has been, I don't want to answer that because um, if I were to answer that, doesn't that kind of take all the fun out of reading? Like if you're going to read the book and you're gonna see the seagull however you want to see him, and he'll be whatever he is to you. But if I answer that question, then conversation finished.
Was it difficult to put him in every single story or piece?
No, no, Tim, because it was it was something that I had thought about beforehand, and to be quite honest, this is a little outside of the realm of what I usually write. I usually write more realism, realistic fiction, narrative poetry, and what kind of happened, and I don't want this to become political, but what kind of happened was that under Donald Trump's America, I just started having like this really like dark, foreboding feeling that realism just didn't work anymore, and I wanted to play around with something different because the reality that I was reading in the news every day what was every bit more bizarre than anything I could create. So I started, playing around with this character, who the seagull actually is based off of someone that a friend and I, like, we saw one day at a bar, and there's some truth to, he worked with this guy at the New Hampshire Union Leader, and the guy did have, like, a ponytail and bald head pulled back, and he did, apparently, I mean, I can't verify this, he tried to get a vanity plate and he couldn't spell it, and he was the seagull after that. But no, the seagull, is the as far as I saw it, was uh just a well to me, um a way of escaping that sort of really dismal reality that we experienced for 4 years.
Well, you said that this was a departure from your normal work, but it's still gritty. You're always known as a gritty
Hmm.
writer. Why do you think you're attracted to the grittiness in literature?
I mean, it's a difficult thing to answer, but I think that likely it has probably something to do with some of my literary influences. I really, I really enjoyed Larry Brown. I enjoyed Russell Banks. I enjoyed, and there's something I think for me that I feel like attracted to and compelled towards, um, where it's these are people, and these are characters who struggle, who and I say the same thing to my students. If everyone's happy, then you don't really have a story. You don't have any conflict. You don't have any tension. And that grittiness, maybe draws from some of my own life experiences and some of my literary influences. It's kind of a circumventing the question, but
When I read what you say about yourself in your bio, and there is certain things that you write about quote being a quote writer, and you say I'll never talk to you about Thomas Pynchon, Wallace
mm,
Stevens, David Foster Wallace. Yet you also have an MFA. So
hmm.
where's the disconnect there?
Well, one and the bio is tongue in cheek. I actually really love David Foster Wallace. I love his nonfiction, and in fact, I read a column for Manchester Inklink, which is basically a local newspaper here in the city of Manchester. Um, and my last column was about teaching David Foster Wallace. I taught um, Consider the Lobster to one of my classes, and and used it as a springboard to talk about cancel culture and what we should read and what we shouldn't read. So some of that was tongue in cheek, but I've also, I'm not gonna lie, I've always had a kind of a disdain for literary pretension. Um, I don't think that being a writer or absolves you from being a decent human being, and I don't think that you know that if you really want to save the world, like if you really want to do something impactful, then I'm not necessarily sure that your book of poetry is going to do that. Like maybe you should, volunteer to, maybe give COVID shots or go over to Syria and help people who are really struggling. And I just, I saw a lot of that, Tim, in my MFA program. Just people who almost seem delusional about, their well about what their writing was going to do, and a an elevated sense of self-importance that I never really understood.
Now, is it up in Manchester? Now, my son lived in Manchester for a little bit, and he described Manchester after dark as meth zombies walking down the street. So, is there a good writing community in Manchester? How's that for a lead in?
Not not there's a writing community here. You know it wouldn't take a lot of Google searching to understand that it's a city that's been hit particularly hard by the opiate epidemic. And I think Manchester is starting to maybe take some steps in the right direction, as far as establishing more of an artistic community. There's a fairly vibrant music scene, but you know, we still got a ways to go.
Now you lived in New Hampshire most of your life, but you taught in Las Vegas. Any of
Yes.
your Vegas experiences seep into any of your previous work?
Yeah, I think, well, probably not something that you're going to purchase on Amazon. My first book, my first chapbook of poetry was was uh, a book that all of them I wrote. Well, I was 22, 23 years old, and like most 22, 23 years old, I had my heart broken, and wrote a book of poems about a girl, and it was called No White Horses. And they were all set in Vegas, and they were all about a specific woman. um
Did she read the book?
I hope so. I sent her a copy. I didn't get much of a response. I think probably that itself was an answer.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is you've done some group writing too with Dan Crocker. And what was it like working with somebody else? Because there's a certain autonomy as a writer
Yeah.
that you have just to sit down whenever you want. You can write whatever the F you want. So what was it like working with Dan?
Well, Dan's my best friend, so it was and Dan and I were pretty much on the same wavelength with those. Yeah, I mean, I think in those, and there were three chapbooks that we wrote, and I think in hindsight now, like 10 years removed from it, they were very self-indulgent. um, and they were very esoteric, and kind of things that, uh, inside jokes that Dan and I got, and we just sort of, you know, ran with it, and riffed on it, and but again, I think when you're working with someone else, if it's someone that you have a deeper connection with, and you understand on more of a visceral level, um, that it's easier. And in fact, like one of the last of those self-indulgent books, Dan and I actually sat there and did sort of a what the, what's the name of that? Is it Exquisite Corpse, where
Yes,
where you go back and forth, and
you
we
cover the
actually wrote.
lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually did like one of the last stories like that. But yeah, I mean, it was, it was fun, but not necessarily something that I would tout.
So if you were to write something with someone else now,
Mm.
what do you think that might be?
I, you know, I would guess if I had to, write with someone, it would be Dan again. But Dan is pursuing different things now. Dan's doing he's actually doing a YouTube program, a Sunday morning program with his wife. It's called Easy Like Sunday Morning, and he's taken his creative pursuits in a different direction and a different medium. But it's fun. It's fun to watch, and again, uh, I'm you know very subjective here, but I enjoy anything that Dan does, and I think he's an incredibly gifted and creative person.
So let's jump back into your poetry. You said your fiction is very realistic, like Raymond Carver, nuts and bolts types of stuff. Is your poetry that way as well?
Um, yeah, I mean, I the strange thing about poetry is that I think as I've gotten a little bit older, that my poetry is becoming a little bit more surrealistic, and maybe the Seagull book is a harbinger for that as well. Maybe I'm moving away from what was comfortable and what I know, and trying to do new and different things. I any anytime you know go out of your comfort level, there's always the very real possibility that you're going to fall on your face. But I think that as I've gotten older, and I don't feel like at this point in my life that I necessarily have to publish a book every year, or feel like I'm a little bit more willing, I think, at this point to take some chances.
Is it important to go outside your comfort level?
I think so. And I think for any artist, and you probably can relate to this as well, and in writing and music, and I mean, if you look at the evolution of any you know any artist who's able to maintain that and sustain that for any period of time, you got to do something new. You got to do something different, and because if not, then you fall into kind of that Charles Bukowski trap, where you just your poems are the short stories and the same things that you wrote for years upon years upon years, and you're just recycling the same shit that you've always done.
Now, say you're doing a reading, right, and you're doing a live reading versus a Zoom reading. Your work's very gritty. Have you ever, in the middle of one of your readings, reached a part that you were uncomfortable reading because you thought the audience might be uncomfortable?
This is it's funny because and I'll make this brief, but uh one of my first books, right, when it came out, I was doing a reading at a Barnes and Noble, and clearly whoever organized the event um didn't read my book, because they set me up right in front of the kids section, like right in front of the children's book. and and at that point, I started reading, and then of course they're mom's giving me death stares, and just yeah, of course. I mean, I think anytime you give a reading, um usually though, within like a couple of minutes, you can gauge the audience, and you can tell whether or not they're going to be receptive, and obviously not in the sort of this format, but usually you can tell whether or not they're going to be a receptive or a hostile audience, and if immediately you realize, yeah, they're not into the gritty, then you gotta shift gears.
Now, having children yourself, have they read your books? I know that you have teenagers or slightly older
Yeah, yeah. Both
teenagers.
both both of them are teenagers now. My daughter's a senior, and I'm gonna pull a proud dad, valedictorian of her high school, and my son
Congratulations to her.
is a sophomore, and not the valedictorian of his high school. Um, yeah, he's not into school. Like my daughter does school, my son doesn't. Um, I signed all my books to them, and gave them to Paige, who's my daughter. Uh, I'm not sure she's read them, but um, it's one of those things where probably neither one of us want to ask or admit. You know, like, did you read my book? Like, yeah, we'll probably. I'm guessing we'll have this discussion about 10 years down the line.
Have your kids or your wife seeped into any of your stories?
Oh, of course. I mean, they have to. I mean, I think that yeah, they all, you I guess and I'm going to give you kind of a formulaic answer to that. I remember again, like in grad school, and you'll appreciate this, is that one of my professors on the first day of class, right, in a fiction writing word workshop, wrote on the board, imagination plus experience plus language equals fiction. So and yeah, I know exactly. I can almost feel everyone rolling their eyes right now, like I rolled my eyes. But so yeah, I mean, I think that it's nearly impossible for your life and your experiences to not seep in to anything that you write. I mean, maybe a lot of writers can do that, and maybe in more like a sci-fi or fantasy genre, that's a little easier to do. But ultimately, um, the writer seeps into to their work because we're humans.
Have any of your students read your work, and have they approached you if they have?
I don't ask. I don't teach my stuff. I don't. I think that um, likely, you know, if they read my work, they're reading my newspaper column, because it gets a lot more traction. If they're reading my fiction, I don't want to know. And if if they were to come up to me after class and say, "Hey, Mr. Graziano, like I read your book. I wanted to," I'd be happy to have that conversation. But it's almost like I have to wear different hats. Like I've got two jobs. Like I'm a teacher, and then because I don't teach in a university, I teach in a high school. So like I have to put on different hats. So it's like, all right, yeah, here I am. I'm in teacher mode now. I left that. I'm out of work now. I'm in writer mode. When those two worlds collide, I have to deal with that on a case by case basis.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming and reading and being our guest.
Oh, absolutely.
While I show everybody your books, this is a little thing that we do. What is your favorite indie bookstore that people can buy some of these online?
Um, there is, if you go to the homepage, there's a link, and I put it first. It just says, I believe, indiebookstore.com. If you go to Gibson's bookstore in Concord, New Hampshire, or the Bookery in Manchester, New Hampshire, uh, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I prefer to not give Jeff Bezos any more money. So like, if if you can, and it's you know the prices are comparable, always order through these indie places, because they keep people like us, they keep us alive. I also have, and yeah, I've got a couple of copies here too. So if someone wants to, like, just message me, I'll scribble on one and send you a copy.
Great. A couple of copies. I open the refrigerator and books fall out of them.
Yeah, no, no, I honestly, I've got four left, and so yeah, if anyone wants a copy, just shoot me a message, friend me on Facebook, and I'll get one for you.
Which book should a newcomer to you start with?
Oh, I'd start with the Seagull. I,
Like,
I, I do. I think um of anything that I've written, that this is my favorite.
fantastic. All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye to this segment and say goodbye to the people that are streaming on Facebook. If you guys want to be involved in the open mic in the future, that are watching on Facebook, or be involved in the Q&A, log on to the Zoom reader. Log on to the Zoom link, and don't be such, like, outsiders there. But thank you, though, for watching. It's great.